It's Watch News Weekly, and it's an exciting one, starting with, there are hints. We're going to start with the Super Bowl, of course, and yeah, my beloved Eagles put an ass whooping on the Chiefs. I mean, it was a statement. I know this is not supposed to be about football, but our defense, our offense, yeah, maybe Saquon did not put up the numbers that everybody expected him to do, himself included, but he accomplished exactly what needed to be accomplished. They were so concentrated on him that it opened up all the rest of our weapons out there. And look at our defense, 4-man rush, not a single blitz, 6 sacks. Anyway, go Birds, go Eagles. But let's talk about the one thing that broke the internet, and that was Tom Brady. Now, you have plenty of celebrities and important people out there wearing really important watches, but Tom Brady stole the show with who? None other than Jacob & Co. Now, I've told you before, I've always been bullish on the company. I always admired what these guys did. I like their watches. I like a little bit of bling. I like a little bit of everything. I like a little bit of innovation that they have. But Tom Brady, I don't know about you guys, I was watching the pregame show, which started actually at 1 p.m. on Fox. Tom Brady was wearing the Billionaire. Then he was wearing the Bugatti watch. And after that, during the game, what was he wearing? He was wearing the Jacob Caviar. You have no idea how many DMs you guys sent me asking me, hey, what is that watch? What is that watch? If you remember and you were paying attention to some of the content I created, the podcast that I did with PBD actually brought that watch to show PBD. It's the Caviar Tourbillon all yellow baguettes. In fact, the pictures or the video on screen didn't do it justice. You see that thing in person, it shines like the sun itself. And guess what? On top of that, Saquon wore the Astronomia Jacob. If you caught Edelman on the pregame show, he was wearing the World Is Yours watch by Jacob & Co. So Jacob literally stole the show of the Super Bowl. Of course, there were other news, not as exciting as my beloved Eagles winning the Super Bowl. I'll say that a few more times. Rolex shuts down Carl Booker. Now, after acquiring Booker in 2023, they're now shutting down the family watchmaking brand, which was founded back in 1888, right? Now, the Rolex decision to shutter the last unprofitable brand, despite the company's considerable 137-year history, comes kind of as a shock. It really underlines Rolex's focus on the functioning elements of the Bucherer business. So basically, when they bought them, they could care less about the Bucherer brand. And I'll be honest with you, historically, we've never really done well with Bucherer watches. We have a few in stock, some of the cheaper ones, and they're not exactly flying off the shelves. There was something about the Bucherer name that really had the Bucherer name as a retailer first and foremost, versus Bucherer, the brand, like the watch brand, right? It was very difficult for him to step into this world. And I'm not knocking on Bucherer watches. They were well-made watches, made in Switzerland. They are well-made watches. I like them. But I also, as a dealer, look at it from a saleability perspective. And, you know, like I said, they weren't really the hottest seller. And the only reason Rolex wanted to buy Bucherer is because of its Rolex doors. I talked about this before. The story goes is that, you know, they wanted to stay under the Swiss flag, which is true. They wanted Bucherer to stay under the Swiss flag. But I think the bigger reason behind it was they didn't want to have a company like Watches of Switzerland swoop in and buy all these Bucherer locations that have all these Rolex doors and in turn be the controlling entity of the business, because Rolex has gone through that before. Since its founding, important to say, 1888, and obviously its sale to Rolex in 2023, the company was owned by the Bucherer family exclusively, making it one of the oldest luxury Swiss watchmakers continuously held by a founding family, which is a pretty big factor. Now, unfortunately, the brand wasn't profitable, right? And so they say. It had an estimated investment of $250 million into the actual watch part of it, and apparently it was never profitable, which comes as a bit of a surprise to me. What doesn't come as a bit of a surprise is that Rolex got the whole, why have a brand compete with a brand? The whole purpose of Rolex buying Bucherer is for Bucherer to sell Rolex watches. Will we see them getting rid of some of the other brands that Bucherer has carried in the past? Perhaps. Or perhaps not, only time will show. For now, it's strictly a business decision. If you have a leg of a business that isn't profitable, why hold on to it? Especially when it may somewhat interfere with the sale of your own product. Speaking of ending things, Patek just discontinued a dozen models. 2 months before Watches and Wonders. We're 2 months away. Most talked about discontinued Patek of 2025, probably the 5167. The longest running Patek Philippe discontinued model would be the 5712 in stainless steel. The two ladies Nautiluses, the 7118-1A and the 7118-1200A. The iced out Nautilus, the 5719/10G, that's another one that got discontinued. They discontinued the split second chronograph, the 5370P-11. This is also something that didn't really run for a long time. Discontinued the minute repeater chronograph perpetual calendar, 5208R. Not really surprised there because, you know, you see the 53 model minute repeaters that are coming out, like the 5316. And things of that nature, so it's only right they're going to do a new one. That one's probably going to be 5308 or something of that nature. The pilot travel time, 5524, a Patek that wasn't really considered a humongous success among the collectors, which I think by discontinuing it, and it also running for a relatively short amount of time, something that potentially can be a future collectible, because it doesn't look like any other Patek. It's different. It's kind of awkward. Some people say it looks like a Zenith. Let's talk about the ladies' annual calendar, 4947G. Beautiful watch, discontinued. We're probably going to see a newer iteration of that. And the discontinued high jewelry 24, the 7300/450R. I'm not super surprised of them discontinued, a high jewelry item. This is something they produce in very low numbers. Whatever new comes out from that, it's going to be probably something a bit nicer, because that particular 24 didn't really take off. Didn't really sell well. It was sort of that cheap option for ladies' Patek, especially in the stainless steel. All iced out or baguetted out, timepieces that Patek has ever made that have done well historically, and not for a very long history, were usually the Nautiluses. Everything else, because of the price tags inching up towards $300-some thousand, they sold very, very few, and Patek knows that. So why not discontinue it, go back to the drawing board? Whatever it is they're going to make as a next version, I think they should just get rid of the whole 24 thing, because 24 just doesn't have a good rep. Greubel Forsey, the new Handmade 2. 95% of the 270-some parts I actually made entirely by hand. I managed to get a preview on that watch before it was shown to the world while I was in Switzerland. And if you're somebody that wants top-notch innovation, top-notch watchmaking, and also know that your entire watch was put together by hand, and you can afford the price tag, this is certainly the watch for you. This is a follow-up to the Handmade 1, surprise, surprise. They only make 2 or 3 of these watches per year, right? Zuckerberg was recently spotted wearing this watch predecessor. It was the $900,000 Handmade 1 released back in 2019. Now, despite being just announced, according to Greubel Forsey, they're already allocated through 2027. 2 to 3 watches per year. It's only 2 years away, so I'm not surprised. Look, you have diehard Greubel Forsey fans out there, and if you're a Greubel Forsey fan, the handmade, it's either the handmade or the innovation pieces are the holy grails. But it's usually, I would go with the handmade, because there's only 2 handmades, and we have plenty of innovation pieces already. Chopard. Now, Chopard, I know you don't often hear me mention Chopard, but Chopard is a power hitter when it comes to watches. I always considered them a big power hitter. Yeah, they were never popular. They're sort of in the shadow of the fact that Chopard is a jewelry brand, but Chopard has come a long way, and specifically thanks to the LUC line. And this time around, they came out with the Lunar 1, which is actually the first calendar and astronomy complication that they came out with. In 2005, they came out with a perpetual calendar and a precision orbital moon phase display in a rotating aperture. 20 years later, today, they revisit the Lunar 1 with a more complicated Basin style case. A trimmer, a more legible dial decorated with hang guilloche in blue and salmon, and a very practical quick release system for the strap. Finally, brands are starting to catch on. So back in 2005, it was a bigger watch, and not surprised, because that was a time where bigger was better. This is when offshore was king and nobody cared for Royal Oak. When it comes to AP, along many other brands out there that were going bigger and bigger and bigger, well, this time around, they finally reduced it from 43 millimeter to 40.5 millimeters. The thickness, however, has increased slightly from like 11.4 to like 11.6. If anybody can tell the difference of a 0.2 millimeter, do let me know. MSRP 89,000. I love the salmon dial. Everything that is done under the LUC mark is amazing and tremendous watchmaking. Unfortunately, it does say Chopard on a dial. If that said F. Journe or any other popular independent or Vacheron Constantin, they'd probably do better. However, don't think that Chopard is suffering particularly within their LUC line. It's sort of that quiet flex that for those that know, they understand the quality of the LUC movements, they understand the quality of the watchmaking behind it, the case design, the finishes, everything and anything. If you take that watch under that microscope and you pick it all apart, you'll say, wow, this is a really well-made watch. It just doesn't have the allure of some hot new independent watchmaker, if you will. But it certainly has the pedigree and then some of an amazing, amazing perpetual. Urwerk, they continue to increase the different models within the UR100 line, right? And this time they came out with Magic T Hunter Green, all right? This is what they call it. It's essentially the green color version of the original UR100V Magic T that came out, what, 2 years ago? 2023. And they introduced a matching titanium bracelet to the brand's popular UR100V collection. Sandblasted and shot blasted titanium case, about 41 millimeters in diameter by 14 millimeters thick, with an overall lug-to-lug profile, which is pretty large. It measures at about 49.7 millimeters, so just about 50 millimeters. And the new Hunter Green will be produced as a limited edition, surprise, surprise, 35 examples. It'll have an official retail price of $66,000, making it, again, what the UR100 line is, a bit more affordable versus some of the other more complicated counterparts that they did. And is this them jumping on the green bandwagon? Perhaps. But at the same token, if you look at the picture of this watch, that green really works for that watch. And again, I am a bit biased. Urwick is one of my favorite independent brands. The bracelet that they make is nothing short of amazing. I've held that bracelet, I've played with it. It's made really well. And we all know that, you know, watches are hard to make, but bracelets are also not an easy task to do, especially on the watch like an Urwick, where they tend to be a bit more oddball shaped. 2025, Ulysse Nardin hits us with a new release. Blast Amaru Penetaire. I probably mangled that name, and I apologize if I did, but it's a really cool watch. This is a pseudonym of a designer, Vsevolod Cherpanov, okay, who collaborated with Ulysse Nardin to create this limited edition Blast Amaru, whatever I said earlier, right? Now, it loosely translates from French to a lover of painting, and they're only making 29 of them. Now, the Blast line had debuted back in 2020, with 41mm case, automatic movements, and the integrated straps. So for 2025, this new limited edition is essentially a new colorway for the Skeleton X. And of course, the star of the show here is the frosted sapphire crystal. It gives the dial an attractive, sort of translucent appearance. And I'm gonna go out on a limb and say trend-setting, right? We've seen sapphire crystal, but we've never seen frosted sapphire crystal. So I think you're gonna see some brands that may wanna follow suit, because the look it gives the watch is absolutely incredible. I love the way it looks. Now, if you look at the case, PVD coated titanium, and it also has this gray Alcantara strap, as they called it, complete with this dark, mysterious aesthetic, right? The hands are really cool shape, a very modern interpretation of lance hands, if you will. And the MSRP, as expected from Ulysse Nardin, is very reasonable, $32,700. I have no doubt that this thing is gonna sell out. It's gonna sell out quickly, if it's already not sold out, with only 29 pieces made. Again, this is Ulysse Nardin pushing the boundaries with design, taking their existing models, taking them to the next level, going out to the right artists, to the right collaborators, if you will, to come up with something fresh, something new, and something we haven't seen before. That sapphire crystal, that smoky sapphire, it makes the watch. You can still see the X, you can still see, and you kind of know what the watch is, but it makes it a lot more mysterious. And quite frankly, it's a really cool looking watch. Would love to get my hands on one. The new Piaget Polo Flying Tourbillon Moon Phase. Now, Piaget's luxury sports watch, the Polo, is inspired by the brand's iconic solid gold 1979 Polo quartz model, with sort of these horizontal lines running across the dial and the integrated bracelet. I still, for the life of me, don't get it how that was a sports watch. And the new Polo Flying Tourbillon raises the complication stakes with an anti-gravity regulator, an astronomical moon phase combo, housed inside a 44mm sporty titanium case with a blue dial. As a precision astronomical moon phase indicator, the watch will only need a one-day correction every 122 years. So the watch retails for 113,000 euros. Not too cheap, but also not too expensive for what you're actually getting from a major brand. Limited to 88 pieces, very smart. Not to really sell that many of these. But again, if this was a Patek Philippe, it would probably retail for double for that, and probably in turn sell for double in the market. I expect these to discount just the same as the fate of all the other Polo S's that are out there, just because, hey, great watch, great mechanics, wonderful company, just they're not quite there in terms of popularity. What are your options out there for $120,000? And if today's day and age of hype and recognizability and social media, of everybody saying, hey, look at what's on my wrist, you're gonna have a hard time explaining to somebody what that is, versus taking just an automatic 5711, which you can buy for less than that, and you will get a lot more clout and a lot more flex. And fortunately and unfortunately, and I say both ways, flex and recognizability has been leading the market today. At some point, somebody's gonna wake up and say, I'm paying $100,000 for an automatic because it's an auto and it says Patek Philippe, or where I can pick up something like this, which is a tourbillon moon phase with highly complicated piece for, you know, less than that. Somewhere, somehow, maybe that pendulum will swing. My favorite independent, Max, does it again. They collaborate with Bulgari, right? The Serpenti from Bulgari, for its entire history, has been aimed separately at ladies, right? It was always the ladies' market, and the watch itself resembles a piece of fine jewelry. And then you've seen various watches that look like the bracelet itself, the head will sort of open up and there's a watch in there. It was jewelry, always has been. But through collabing with Max, we finally get a men's version. So the Bulgari x MB&F Serpenti is basically reimagining the Serpenti idea, which is to interpret the body of a snake in a time-telling device. Now, MB&F, the perfect collaborator for this. Look at the frogs, look at the bulldogs, right? I mean, they couldn't have picked a better collaborator to design something like this. And Max, I think, knocked it out of the park. Am I biased? Yes. I like Max. I like the stuff that he's done. It's one of my favorite independents, right? But take all that aside and look at this thing and think to yourself, here's the original Serpenti watch that looks like a piece of jewelry. Now I want to take this and I want to translate it into a men's watch. Not only that, a watch that a man would actually want. Make sure that the DNA of the Serpenti is still part of the watch while maintaining true to form MB&F DNA, right? This thing is like 40 millimeters wide. It's 18 millimeters thick. 53 millimeters from lug to lug. Like I said, not a small watch. And the snake is visible from the narrow 12 o'clock side of the case. Now, it's going to be available in 3 different metals. They're going to do rose gold, they're going to do titanium, and they're going to do black PVD stainless steel. Now, the steel and titanium versions are going to have a retail price of $148,000. MB&F isn't that cheap. And the solid gold version retails for $170,000, and they're going to make 33 pieces in each metal in typical MB&F fashion. But looking at it and looking at the idea and thinking from a perspective of, taking the Serpenti, right, and translating into a men's watch, what would that look like? That shows you the genius in the design of one of my favorite independent watchmakers, Max Bucherer. Last but not least, the most important news, the Philadelphia Eagles win the Super Bowl. Oh, I already talked about that. But yeah, the Eagles won the Super Bowl. I'm super happy. I'm super excited. I hope you guys like this video. Like, comment, share, subscribe, do all those wonderful things that help my channel grow. And I'll see you in the next one.